Thanks for joining us. I'm Sarah Massler-Donar. There's a new speaker in the House of U.S. Representatives. After 3 weeks of gridlock, Representative Mike Johnson emerged in the 11th hour as Republicans' fourth nominee to wield the gavel, and in just one round of voting, he won it. Johnson is a little-known conservative from Louisiana. He's an attorney with a focus on constitutional law who's been in the House since 2016. His speakership comes after 3 other nominees failed to secure the votes they needed. Representatives Steve Scalise, Jim Jordan, and Tom Emmer.
The challenge before us is great, but the time for action is now, and I will not let you down.
Johnson secured 220 votes, receiving support from the entire GOP conference except Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden, who is out of the country visiting Israel amid its ongoing war with Hamas. Joining me now is Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany. Thanks so much for taking some time to be with us.
Good to join you today, Sarah.
You served with Speaker Johnson on the House Judiciary Committee. What can you tell us about how he'd approach this speakership?
You know, he always has a real positive, just a real positive demeanor. And I'm sure he's going to bring that same thing to the speakership. He chaired the subcommittee on the Constitution. He takes that very seriously, and it's certainly part of the principles that he's been talking about is, you know, the free enterprise system and individual liberty. It is preeminent in all the work that he does.
Johnson wasn't really on the radar until it seems the 11th hour, but you did vote for him. You began by voting to keep Kevin McCarthy as speaker. So what changed for you over the course of the last few weeks?
Yeah, you know, so you had the motion to vacate, you know, it was almost 3 weeks ago. And of course that succeeded. And I voted for Kevin McCarthy. I didn't think we should have done it. And then we went through a series of candidates. I voted for Jim Jordan. I voted for Byron Donalds. And but then once we got to the point where those people that are really in the upper parts of leadership and they had fallen by the wayside, Emmer, Scalise, and others, you know, Mike Johnson became a real choice. And, you know, having worked with him, I was happy to vote for him as, you know, we got to this third week of going through the process.
Johnson is conservative on policy issues. He's opposed abortion rights and same-sex marriage. He's an ally of former President Trump. He did lead that effort to get House Republicans to sign a legal brief that would overturn the 2020 election results. I believe that you signed on to that at the time. So why then did this time around moderate Republicans who opposed the other hard right nominee, Jim Jordan, get behind Johnson?
You know, I don't think people would characterize Mike Johnson, when you see all of the work that he's done in the years here in Congress, he's not defined as someone who's of the hard right, you know, for those people that handicap things in such ways. And, you know, I think people know that he is thoughtful and he's going to bring leadership and vision because he knows that we have to stop this excessive government spending that's led to the inflation, the high cost of living for the American people. We have to get back to energy independence. And most importantly, we need to secure the border. He sits on the Judiciary Committee where we worked on the best secure the border bill that's ever been passed through Congress this year, H.R. 2. And he's going to make that, I believe, a focus as we go forward, or one of the bills that's going to be really preeminent.
And I do want to get to border policy in just a few here, but as you said, it's back to business now for the House. Are you confident that under Speaker Johnson's leadership, the House can pass the appropriations bills and come to an agreement with the Senate before the November 17th deadline?
Yeah, I believe so. You know, when you look at going back 3 weeks ago, we had passed about 70% of the discretionary spending bills that are before Congress. And the Senate still has not done that. So while you've seen this interlude of 3 weeks, we've done a lot of that, and I believe we can finish it here in fairly short order.
Kevin McCarthy faced a mutiny due in part to his reliance on Democrats to pass legislation. How do you think Johnson can walk this fine line? Because there will likely come a time he'd have to compromise with Democrats and the president.
Yeah, we're going to find out in regards to that. You know, I think the key thing is to pick a couple key issues that the American people really believe in. And one of them is securing the border. The other one, people know that that there's just fiscal irresponsibility going on out in Washington, D.C. We have to rein in spending. I think those are a couple issues that we can all agree upon. And I'm hoping that we can agree upon what's happening in the Middle East to defend Israel. I know that's of great importance to Speaker Johnson also.
Well, the president has proposed that aid package. It links together funding for Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, the border. Do House Republicans support a comprehensive aid package?
Yeah, those should all be separated. You know, if you go back to January when we had the 4 days and 15 votes for speaker, the reason that happened is because people said we want to get back to regular order so that we have transparency for the American people. And that means no more Christmas tree bills, no more bills that come on the floor, 1,000 pages, 2 hours to be able to study it. The American people know we were not doing our job. There's much greater transparency now. And part of that is splitting these bills apart that come to us as kind of omnibus bills. We got to split them apart and vote on them individually. That's what I support.
In this package, there is an allocation for aid to humanitarian relief in Gaza. What are your thoughts on including those funds?
If the money is simply going to be used by Hamas, then we should not do that. And that's what has happened. I mean, we've seen stories of, like pipes, utility pipes that just get turned into rocket launchers. We cannot allow that to. We cannot allow that to happen.
So you've talked about, enacting border policy. How do you feel about the funding that the president has proposed for work down at the border?
The president is once again missing the story in regards to the border. It does not require more money. It requires a policy change. One of the first things he did, January 20th of 2021, he said, we're going to have open borders. And he stopped Remain in Mexico and allowed catch and release. This is all about policy, not money. This does not require more money to secure the border. It requires the president having the will to change the direction by 180 degrees that he has been going on over the last couple years that has led to this just terrible situation with the border, the human trafficking, the fentanyl poisonings, #1 killer of young people in America. He needs to reverse course. It only requires policy changes.
What border policy proposals would you like to see enacted?
Yeah, you go back to Remain in Mexico. We saw it with the previous administration, and it was successful. I talked to sheriffs down on the border, for example, Sheriff Mark Daniels, Cochise County, Arizona, and he talked about how it was working back in 2020. It's no longer working. You got to go back to Remain in Mexico and stop the catch and release where people can simply come into this country and being unvetted. A part of the bill that I wrote was in regards to immigration parole. That's supposed to be done on an individual basis. The Biden administration is using that in a broad basis to bring in, 50, 100,000 people at a time. That's not what immigration parole was supposed to be. So there's a number of changes that we can make. Look at HR 2. That accomplishes what needs to be done for America.
Congressman Tom Tiffany, thanks for taking some time to be with us this morning.
Yeah, really good to join you.